what's my name? What's my name?
Why doesn't the hero reveal himself and tell us all your real name? You do have a name.
My name is Gladiator.
Well, my name's not Gladiator. It's Tim. It's New York Giants Straight Talk coming at you with episode, I think, numbers 5 or 6. I don't know. You have to go on to the place wherever they have, whatever the hell it's called, the podcasts, because this is the video feed of the podcast. The podcast has been doing extremely well, and I want to thank everyone that has been downloading and all that fun stuff. It's been a good time doing this. Will more episodes come out than more than once a week? Don't know yet. We haven't decided. Kind of working on the schedule because I have other couple podcasts I do as well. But you know what? Let's take with what we got and go with what we got. And let's talk, of course, about the New York Football Giants. Daniel Jones. We talked about this briefly, potentially wanting $45 million a year or $40 million a year for his contract, which is just crazy. It's insane. It's a number, and it's a starting point. Of course, him leaving, his agency, we've talked about this in the video before, going from CAA, which really delves in not just sports, but entertainment, and going to Athlete First, which is just strictly athletes. It's an interesting move. You don't really see this. Like I said, I think back to 2014 is the last time I really thought a quarterback who was going for a big contract, and Russell Wilson changed agents late in the game. It is what it is. But you know what? The Giants, if they let him go, if they let him walk.
That's great. That's just fucking great, man. Now what the fuck are we supposed to do? We're some real pretty shit now, man.
And no, we're not. Because there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is a pot of gold at the rainbow. There is a way that Joe Schoen can turn around and make the Giants in some ways survive and thrive without Daniel Jones and potentially even Saquon Barkley. And we're going to talk about that. Also today, if you hang out for the entire part of this video, our on the mic segment, we're going to bring in an old friend, someone that former Giant YouTuber, excuse me, I can't talk today. It's OGR Sports, so make sure you hang out for that. But let's talk about Daniel Jones. Everyone wants to talk about Daniel Jones statistically, and I love it the fact that when people talk about him statistically, and the statistics do not bear fruit for their argument, the first thing that they say is, well, he's worth more to this team than just statistics. But your whole thought process was showing statistics and showing how his statistics are this and compared to this to the top 20 guys. I had my crack staff, and I do have a crack staff now, pull up some numbers for me. And I'm going to pull up the spreadsheet, and I probably should have done this prior to this. And basically what these numbers are is they took the top 20 quarterbacks. And some of these stats are just basic average stats. And they broke down the average of what these top 20 quarterbacks are. Now, Daniel Jones, of course, is considered into these top 20 quarterbacks because he is ranked, where is he ranked? He's ranked 15, just one spot ahead of the dangerous David Mills. And I find it interesting. And like I said, these are basic statistics. Now, this is a guy you want to give $40 million to. Now, if you take an average of the top 20 quarterbacks, average completions are 349. Daniel Jones is 317. The average attempts is 532. Daniel Jones is 472. Average completion is 65%. Daniel Jones is at 67%. Average yards, total yards, 3,845. Daniel Jones, 3,205. The average amount of touchdowns, 24. Daniel Jones, 15. The touchdown percentage is 4.5 to Daniel's 3.2. The interceptions is 10 to Daniel Jones's 5. The interception ratio is 2.1 to 1.1. Of course, we also have taken the fact that he threw the ball 100 times less. The average yard per attempt. The league average is 7.2. Daniel Jones is 6.8. The average yards after attempt is 7.2. Daniel Jones is 6.9. The yak is 11.7 to Daniel Jones is 10. With the average yards a game is 248 to Daniel Jones is 300, which gives you an average quarterback ranking of 93 to Daniel Jones is 92. The sack average is 33 to Daniel Jones is 44. But I find it interesting that he is sacked more times, and he is sacked 44 times, but the average sack yardage is 226 to Daniel Jones is 243. And the sack percentage is 6% to 8% for Daniel Jones. Now, if you take a look at all these numbers and you take a look where his numbers fall on average, he's actually ranked at the bottom of the top 20. Now, these are, like I said, these are just standard rankings because people are going to talk about the game-winning drives and all this, but the game-winning drives are interesting because of the fact that Mike Too Nice broke it down that he threw these game-winning drives, 1 passes, 0 passes, 2 passes, and it'd be like 1 pass for 10 yards, 1 pass for 11 yards. All of his yards come via rushing. Now, he did have 700 yards rushing compared to the league average of 385. And these, again, this is the top 20. But if you look at and compare his statistics, on the surface, it's just average. In some way, I'm not going to call it below average. I'm going to say he's an average NFL quarterback. He is a guy that can potentially win you some games, but is he going to make that Herculean leap at 25 years old when the average age of a quarterback right now is 25? Is he going to make that leap? I don't see it. I just don't see it. Now, if you take a look at, now I want to talk about running backs for a minute. And this is all going to make sense in a second here. I'm going to pull up the running back rankings because what I had them do is I also had them pull up the running back rankings. The running back rankings for the top 20 running backs in the league. Now, and this is going to have a correlation to it. Now, of course, Saquon Barkley is number 4 in reference to rushing yardage last year. But let's look at the average age of a running back is 25. Average starts is 16. Of course, he started at 16. Average attempts are 248. Saquon Barkley, 295. Average yards is 1,115 to Saquon Barkley's 1,312. Average touchdowns are 8 to his 10. The average number of first downs is 55 compared to 62 for Saquon Barkley. The longest run is 68. Of course, his yards per carry is 4.4, which is at the average of 4.4 itself. The average rushing yards a game is 69 to his 82. So his fumbling average is almost 3 to his 1. That shows a running back that is within the top 3 of the conversation of top running backs in the league. I can even go, and we're not even going to go in the passing yards, but I can say he's technically in the top 2. I would take Derrick Henry and then Saquon Barkley. So this is a guy that is well above average statistically for the Giants, well above average. Now you have to look at the salary ramifications. Saquon Barkley made 8 last year. He could bring it, if you tag him, it's 10.1. And you got to kind of move at it and look at it that way as well. Daniel Jones is looking to make a leap that is going to be exponential in reference to salary cap. And everyone says, well, he could, if he wants the $40 million, he's got to take less in the first year. Well, less in the first year is probably going to average between 25 to 29 million. And let's just say you have a $50 million cap number, and we're going to get into that. But let's say you have a $50 million cap number. That brings you down to 25. You bring back Saquon Barkley, that brings you down to 13. You have your draft class is 10.8 million. That's your cap hold, 10.8. And I have those numbers too. I'll pull those numbers up later too. So you've already got down to $3 million. And with a roster that has a plethora of holes, it doesn't make sense in some regards to bring both of these guys back because you are going to hamstring yourself when it comes time for free agency and what you're going to do in the draft. Now, I love it because everyone's theory is this. The Daniel Jones theory is this. Well, there's nothing better out there. What's better out there than Daniel Jones? There's a lot of things better out there than Daniel Jones, especially at $40 million. Derek Carr could probably slide nicely into that $32 million range. If you're going to pay a quarterback $40 million, I would rather have Lamar Jackson. I would rather find a stopgap. I would rather go into the draft and look for a quarterback. Now, this is where we're going to get into this. How can the Giants thrive and succeed without Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley? And it's quite easy because we're going to pull up these numbers here. We have the draft compensation list. This is the compensation per each draft choice for the New York Giants. And I'm sorry, it came out to $10,964,604. That's what the cap hold is going to be for the New York Giants in reference to the rookie draft class. The good news is if you're taking a look at the first round pick for the Giants, you're probably looking at a $2.5 million cap hold. Your second round pick at 58 is 1.1. Your two third rounders are 957,000, 940,000. Your fourth rounder is 896,000, and then so on, which gives you the grand total of $10,964,000. So I mean that's your number. The Eagles and other teams have shown us the way that if you can get a quarterback and you can get a quarterback and win on that rookie contract. Now, this is nothing that the NFL doesn't know already. If you can win on that rookie, you need to win on that rookie contract, because unless you have a Patrick Mahomes, a Josh Allen, the Duck, unless you have a Herbert, a Joe Burrows, and you pay these people you're going to pay those guys huge amount of money, but they are going to produce with minimal talent around them. They are going to make the talent around them better. Daniel Jones does not do that. So if you're going to be moving forward and taking a look at this team and look at this organization, you have to look at the fact that, and I've talked about this before, coaches look at a season. General managers look at 5 years down the road. And that's the issue we're having right now. We need to focus on the fact that, yes, the Giants had a 9-7-1 record, but the fact that, what was it? Yeah. But the fact is this. Was it 9-7-1? I can't remember off the top of my head. It's been a long day. I got all these damn numbers up here. I'm confused today. But you look at this, you're probably more likely going to take a little bit of a step back because of the fact that there are a lot of holes on this team. And if you go out and give Daniel Jones this big money, you are going to hamstring yourself in reference to free agency. We talked about that over and over again. Now, what we need to look at also is the Giants' salary cap situation. If you look at their team positionally, you have 5 guys that are making the bulk of your salary cap. That's Leonard Williams, Kenny G, Dory Jackson, Dexter Lawrence, and Andrew Thomas. And you also have Glowinski in there, who's got that albatross of a contract with an $8 million dead cap number and against $8 million cap hit. So you know what? And then you got Kayvon Thibodeau's contract, and you have all these rookie contracts that are going to start maturing, so that's going to trickle up as well. This is trickle up economics. But you're not going to, you're probably going to move on for Kenny, which is going to add to your cap space, which probably give you to 50. You're probably going to, you could potentially look at restructuring some of Adoree Jackson's deal and not extending his years, but maybe moving some money into 2024, maybe giving him a dead cap number as well. Dexter Lawrence, you're going to have to end up paying, but their contracts are all top heavy. And I laugh because if you look at the positional spending for the Giants, this is interesting. You look at the positional spending right now. The running back, the defensive line, because of Leonard Williams, with only 7 players, is a $50 million cap hit, which is 22% of the cap. Your offensive line, which was better, but pedestrians at time, was $35 million, which is 15.8. Your secondary is 14.9, which is 33 million. And your wide receivers are 28, and the majority of that's going to be, of course, with the Kenny G contact, which is 12. And then you have your linebackers at 11 million, quarterback at 9, 6, we don't have a quarterback, tight ends at 1, running back at 1. Now, the running back number is going to have to go up. It's going to have to go up, and it's going to have to move forward. So the way this team is constructed is that is between the 3 units itself, the defensive line, offensive line, and secondary, you're looking at almost $120 million of your cap space. Which is not where you want to be. Your team is not evenly divided in your cap space. And what happens is if you sign your quarterback for $40 million plus, he is then going to be the number 1 positionally for 2 players at anywhere around 46 million. And then you're going to have a large cap number of 46 million, 50 million, and 35 million between your quarterback, your defensive line, and your offensive line. Your contracts aren't structured properly. Now, a lot of this has to do with Dave Gettleman, and Shane is getting out from underneath this. But the problem is you need to look at the fact that you need to find a lower cost solution who is going to provide you more than average statistics at your quarterback position so you can save your team and help build through free agency and the draft. And I'm telling you, it's not that difficult to do. It really is not. Because of the fact that I think there are quarterbacks that you can get in the second round. I think there are quarterbacks that you can get maybe later in the first round who can provide statistically average stats, if not better than Daniel Jones. Everyone knows that I love Hendon Hooker. Everyone knows that. He's coming off the ACL. The rumors are that he is going to be fine going into training camp. I always hearken back to that Florida game where it was supposed to be Hooker versus Richardson. It was supposed to be this big time battle. And if you take the look at it and you watch that game, Hooker to me was just head and shoulders above Richardson. He completed 70% of his passes for 3,135 yards, 27 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Also recorded another 430 yards. The Giants, of course, have extensively met with him already. A couple other teams have had extensive talks with him. Now, the ACL is probably going to scare some people off, which I'm fine with. But if you slot him into potentially a second-round pick, and now you have 2 third-round picks, so you could probably trade up into into the second round out of 58. And you could trade up. And if you trade up, your number right now, you're looking at for your cap hit and your second round pick is a 1.15 million. Now you'll probably get up to 1.5 million in that second round number, because the numbers are always lower in the first part of the rookie contracts, and then they accelerate as they go down. So you're going to have a very low cap number for that quarterback, which is going to help open up your cap space. So if you're tagging in a $2 million cap number for your quarterback, that's in a perfect situation. That's in a perfect scenario. I'm not a Richardson fan. I know a lot of people are. I get leery. I don't focus on statistics. I get leery with the fact that I don't think he's as a polished passer right now. I don't think that he has the instincts of where he needs to be in reference to. He's going to be a project. He reminds me a lot of Malik Willis. Bring him the reminds me a lot of Malik. I think he's probably got a higher upside than Malik, because Malik again played at Liberty. And I love the people like, well, you got Malik wrong. Well, a lot of people get a lot of things wrong, and I admit when I got things wrong, but I'm not admitting Malik's wrong yet because he only played 3 NFL games. Daniel Jones is going in year 5, and we want to give him $40 million for no reason. But I think, like I said, I think you're going to have more of a challenge getting him polished and ready, Richardson. But we're not going to get into all the other quarterbacks, but I do think Hooker is a guy you can get in the second round. I think a lot of people are going to be scared off by that knee injury. I also like Malik Cunningham out of Louisville. He gives me a more of a Jalen Hurts vibe. I know he's coming in around the third round. So again, your third round pick is $940,000 against the cap. So you're already saving cap money if you look at that situation. And then if you do that, you could turn around and tag Saquon Barkley for that $10 million. And I know I'm leery about giving Barkley the big money because of the fact that you never know what happens with a running back. But if you tag him, I'm fine with that, because you know what? We just showed that he is a top 3 to top 2 running back, while Daniel Jones falls into the bottom half of the top 20. So you can have someone take the pressure off of your rookie quarterback or Tyrod Taylor by bringing in and keeping Saquon Barkley. So even if you tag Saquon Barkley at 10 and you have 50, you're looking at 40 and you have 900,000 on your quarterback, or technically 7 million if you want to count the Tyrod Taylor contract. You're still sitting there at $33 million of additional cap space. So it can be done. And there are options. And like I said, you look at Marcus Mariota. Marcus Mariota statistically had a comparable year to Daniel Jones, making a hell of a lot less money. So do you stopgap with a Marcus Mariota, maybe at 7 or 8 million, and tie him in with Tyrod Taylor and carry a rookie quarterback? There's different ways, because the way this offense is predicated is the fact that it's predicated against the run and establishing the run and building on the run. And that's why I think it's funny. A lot of people say that if Lamar Jackson leaves Baltimore, that Daniel Jones would be a good fit in Baltimore, because of the fact that it's a run-heavy, run-oriented offense. And if they want to give him $35 million and they want to give us 2 first-round picks for Jones, I'm happy to send him on his merry way. So you drafted a quarterback, you've signed Saquon Barkley to the tag. Saquon Barkley takes the tag at 10.1. You have money left over. The question is this: what are you going to do with your draft capital? What are you going to do with your money? And I was thinking about this a little bit. And I don't want to go too fully into it, but you need to replace the guard position. That's a given. That's 100% given. I look at the guard list, and the one name that sticks out in my mind, I have my list right here, is Evan Brown over in Detroit, 26 years old, made $2.5 million last year. There is talk that Detroit may potentially, he was a first-year starter last year. There is talk that Detroit may use the tag on him. I don't think they would use the tag on him, because of the fact that, like I said, he really did just come into his own last year. But I do think he would be a good fit as well. You got to look at Cody Ford over at Arizona. He's another guy that you could potentially bring in on a lower deal. Like I said, if you take a look at Brown, if you give him between 8 to 10 million, and like I said, his market value is probably going to be a little higher. But again, the market value is in the eye of the beholder. But I would say his average salary should be probably about 8 to 10 million. And I would stay on the 8 side. I think you're going to find a nice, you're going to have a nice guard combination at $8 million coming in and playing for the Giants and help solidifying that line. And then I also took a look at, if you go through because you're also going to have to upgrade the cornerback position and come back in it with the CB2. Now, I know a lot of people are against it, but I like bringing in I like bringing in the likes of Marcus Peters even at 38 years old. Excuse me, at 30 years old. He had a good season, a fair season last year. Only had 736 snaps, 47 tackles, 1 sack, 2 forced fumbles, and an interception. He made $14 million, but he's on the downslope of his career. You could probably bring him in for at least around 7, which would be an interesting fit. I think you can get also a guy like Emmanuel Mosley out of San Francisco. Probably bring him in even around 5, and then you can bring in the likes of maybe even going towards maybe looking at someone like Mike Hughes over in Detroit as well. Another guy who was unrestricted free agent, made $2 million last year, probably has a contract value of about $4 million. So there are different ways that you can turn around and build and find guys through the free agency. And then one of the things we really need is, and if you want to spend your money, is an outside linebacker. You need an outside linebacker. You need an inside linebacker. You need a guy that statistically may have, may look at this and say, okay, you know what, he's got potential, but you need someone that can play the run. You need someone that can consistently tackle. What's his name? Nicholas Morrow, out of with the Bears. Started all 17 games, played over 1,000 snaps, 116 tackles, made $3 million last year. He's probably going to get $7 million, probably get a bump up to about $7 million as well. But if you see what we're doing is we're looking at all these not lower price free agents, but free agents that can fill the roster and free agents that can turn around and offer something to the Giants more than one positionally and also maintain salary cap balance. I like David out of Tampa. I know he's older at 33, but he still played over 1,000 snaps, 124 tackles. He's got a $12 million number, but at 33 years old, he's probably going to come down between 7 and 8. I know a lot of people are high on Devin Bush, but Devin Bush, of course, has been injured, has a very inconsistent career in Pittsburgh, but he did have 640 snaps, 81 tackles, made $4 million. So you're only probably looking like at least a $2 million bump there. But not bringing in Jones, as you could see, because I have all these numbers and I'm still under the salary cap. I've listed like 5 or 6 guys that we've signed and I'm still under the cap. These are guys that can help in positions that are weaknesses and can be exploited and were exploited last year. So the theory is this: you let Jones walk, you either you draft your quarterback, you hold on to Tyrod Taylor, you also potentially bring in another stopgap guy, you tag Saquon Barkley. It allows you to have more cap space available to sign a guard, at least 2 corners, and potentially 2 linebackers. So if you assign 5 guys who are necessary to this team, who can help improve this team in the next year and potentially help you move forward into 2023 and 2024 by being building pieces without wrecking your cap and not without wrecking the continuity of what you can do salary cap wise. I know that's a lot of information to disseminate, and you know what? We're going to jump into a fun segment, and it's a segment I love to do. It's called On the Mic, and today we have On the Mic with OGR Sports, and here we go, On the Mic with OGR Sports. All right, everyone, it's time to go on the mic, and of course we have the venerable, the dapper, the dashing OGR Sports coming into the zone, and he's going to be pontificating for the next 10 minutes about whatever he wants to. Anything Giant related, and we're going to go from there. And Mr. OGR Sports, welcome. And before we get started on the 10 minutes, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm always good. You know that. Hair looks good. Everything's going to go good. I have the clock ready. Are you ready to go 10 minutes about the New York Football Giants and go?
All right, 10 minutes. So, where do I begin?
The beginning.
A lot.
Sorry.
Well, yes, very true. But what I'm trying to get at is average. A lot of people will take what Brian Dable has said, Joe Shane has said, and make it seem like Daniel Jones is coming banging. And it's kind of ridiculous. Because I'm not saying he's not. He could. But when somebody says to you, you've done everything I wanted you to do. To me, that's saying, okay, you've met bare minimum. Do you agree?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I said before that if you look up average and you look up statistically average, Daniel Jones is in and actually the bottom half of average. And it's funny that you're talking about this because the video that we had today, it talks about Daniel Jones' statistics and him being a little below average from the other 20. I picked 20, the first 20 starting quarterbacks, that he was actually technically between 18 and 19 a reference when it came to stats. So yes, that is average.
So when you're talking about giving somebody between 30 and 45 million, which is over half your cap space. Okay, so wouldn't that be put aside for a star, somebody who can carry your football team, who could lose their number one wide receiver and still go to a Super Bowl?
I would hope so. I would think that if you're going to pay anyone $45 million, his last name better be Mahomes or Allen or Burrows.
Exactly. So if you're not going to put Daniel Jones in that category, then why are we having this discussion?
Because he was taken 6th overall. Because he
Well,
had
then
one average season out of 4.
Okay. So if we're doing that, then yeah, he's a 6th overall pick. He's a bust.
Yeah.
If he's not carrying your franchise,
yeah,
by now,
and going into year 5, yeah.
And it's if you just look at it from that simplistic view, then I don't get it. This common sense. Like
Common sense says this, and I don't want to take up your time, but if you look at what he has done, would you look at his stats and say to Daniel Jones, this is your life. This was one hell of a year. Your 3,000 yards, your 15 touchdowns, your 22 total touchdowns, and your 700 yards rushing. That to me is Mahomian. That's 45. That's 45 million plus.
You're 100% right, but you should also be able to elevate the people around you.
Right.
And to a certain extent, he did that in the first playoff game with the Minnesota Vikings. But that's what we need to see on a consistent level.
I think I could have beat the Minnesota Vikings, though, that defense.
Very true. But that type, you need to be able to see on a consistent level. And we've not seen it for 4 years, except for one game.
My question,
So,
but I got a question.
Yeah.
I have not to interrupt you again, but I got a question. You are Joe Schoen. You are sitting there. Daniel Jones is not your quarterback. You are not married to him. You hear the 45 million. You see that he switches over from CAA to Athletes First. He's talking about potentially eating up all your cap space because your Giants will probably have over 50 million after they do everything that's with Kenny G and everything else. But still, even if you bring him back at 30 and you have 50, you've already taken away 20. What are the odds or what are the percentages that Joe Schoen is just sitting there saying, hey, listen, this just doesn't make sense, not only from a football standpoint, but just mathematically?
It doesn't make sense mathematically because I go by Joe Schoen's own words. So if you look at last year, he said he wanted 10 to 12 million for in-season moves. So you can't re-sign Saquon. So what else is there to really do? What are you going to surround him with? A bunch of rookies and say, okay? And you still need to fill out the roster.
Well, you have 11 draft choices, and everyone knows that when you have 11 draft choices, all 11 make the team. We all know that, and they all contribute immediately because no one ever gets hurt. No one's ever a bust. They always make the team. So I think that's what. And I'm being facetious because there's a certain segment of the fan base that just wants this to be true. and doesn't understand that even at 30 million, here's the pinnacle question for you, Mr. OGR. 30 million. I still think 30 million's way too much. Would you bring back Daniel Jones on a $30 million a year deal, let's say for 3 years? It's going to have to be longer than that because they're going to have to, it'll have to be, any deal that Daniel Jones has is going to have to be 5 years because they're going to have to be at least 25, that first cap number in year one. But would you bring him back for 5 years, let's say average 30 million, which is $150 million?
No. It's as simple as that. I mean, why would I?
Well, don't sugarcoat it.
No, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But I just don't believe he can carry this franchise. I just don't. There's nothing that she's done or showed to carry the franchise.
Now,
I mean, if they did bring him back, I'd still root for him.
Right.
Don't get me wrong.
The big
But
question
I believe
is,
it'd be the wrong choice.
the big question is that everyone talks about and everyone likes to bring up is then who? Whom, or is it whom? Whom would you bring in then if Daniel Jones isn't here? What I mean, and again, this video, this is kind of weird because this video, the video I shot ahead of time before we did this segment is all about who I would bring in and replace Daniel Jones and such. But that's everyone's question. Everyone that's in Daniel Jones camp says, well, there's nobody better. There's nobody better, and there's no other options. And I even said, if I have a choice between being robbed and being held hostage, I'm gonna take option 3, whatever option 3 is. So your question is, then whom are you going to bring in to compete with Tyrod Taylor and replace the venerable Daniel Jones?
Baker Mayfield, Derek Carr,
Baker Mayfield, Baker's. I think Baker's staying in L.A. But Carr, you're going to want to have 30. Carr's going to want to have 32 million at least minimum.
He has a better track record than Daniel Jones, and I don't think he sets back here for answering.
So you would rather bring in a 32-year-old Derek Carr, who had a down season in Vegas, than go with the 3,000 yards, 15 touchdowns, 22 total touchdowns, 700 yards rushing version of Daniel Jones, which may be what his pinnacle is. It may be his upside. So you were telling me you'd rather go with the 32-year-old quarterback off a down season than bringing in Daniel Jones,
because his down season was still better than Daniel Jones.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, that's kind of where I was going with that as well. I was kind of headed in that direction as well. Saquon Barkley, though,
I'd love to keep him. But if you're going to pay Daniel 30 to 35 million, you can't.
Now, what if they don't bring Jones back?
Then I'm okay with no more than 12 million.
No more than 12. So he wants 14.5. The cap number's 10.1. If they tag him, would you consider tagging Saquon? Kind of doing like the Bell situation over in Pittsburgh, which is probably going to piss him off a little bit. But getting that one extra year from his 25th to 26th birthday and see what he does. Because I can't see the Giants giving Ezekiel Elliott money like they did when they signed him that extension in the middle of year 4. I mean, I can't see them doing that. Would you tag him at the 10.1 number after he made 8 last year?
Yeah, because it's only a $2 million difference.
There's only a $2 million difference, and that's what I always like to hear. You have a minute 30 left. I want you to reach deep. I want you to find that inner strength. I want you to find that feng shui. And I want you to come up with something that's good. Because this is going to close out the show. This is closing out Giant Straight Talk episode number 6, I think this is. So you have now a minute 15 seconds. I want something that's going to blow everyone's mind. Go.
All right, blow everybody's mind.
I didn't say blow everybody. I said blow everybody's mind. That's not what we do on this show. But go ahead. Now you got a minute 5.
Hayden Hooker. That's who I want to reach for in the draft. 2nd, 3rd, 4th round. Right now, they see him as a 4th rounder. You have somebody as a stopgap in Tyrod Taylor. You have a developmental quarterback in Hayden Hooker with all the attributes. Why not take a chance? Because you're not done building this team. And it would almost be similar to what the Philadelphia Eagles did with Carson Wentz and Jalen Hurts. Why not take a chance?
Why not take a chance on the hooker? Because it's only $400 an hour. It's a cheap hooker, especially if you come in the third, second, or fourth round. OGR must have watched the video ahead of time before he came on. I don't know how that's possible because we did a whole segment on the hooker. So, OGR, that is your 10 minutes on the mic. I appreciate you coming in, stopping by, having a good time. Anything to plug?
No. I appreciate it, Tim. Thank you for bringing me on.
Well,
I mean, if you want to check out my old content,
if you want,
OGR
go
Sports
find
on YouTube.
OGR Sports. You know what? It'll be fun to watch and see what he talked about in retrospect. And you know what, guys? I appreciate OGR coming in. I appreciate him taking the 10 minutes of being on the mic. This is Tim. This is New York Giants Straight Talk, and OGR Sports signing off, saying thank you. That was a great segment on the mic. I appreciate OGR coming out and coming in and having a lot of fun out there. This is Tim. This is New York Giants Straight Talk. We'll have another episode, I think, next week. If you want to be on the mic, just email me at tim@onlineBigBlue.com. That's tim@onlineBigBlue.com. And I appreciate everyone from hanging out and hanging in, and we're out of here.